So hello you guys, how you all doing? I know it's been a while since I made a video. The reason being I just have been busy with school and other things related with life, and I really wasn't feeling that well in terms of making videos. So I figured, you know what, let's just try and take it back a bit, to more of a coding style again, as I used to make videos about code a lot back in the day. And I just have been on a hiatus for a few weeks. In terms of making those other YouTube videos, I was originally considering quitting YouTube fully because I just didn't want to spend any more time on YouTube. It has been fun for as long as it lasted, but it isn't as fulfilling anymore. But then again, if I actually, if this video gets a bit of traction and people want to see more of this, it will tell me that, hey, you guys are still here for the coding stuff, so I'll try and just make more videos about code if that's what you're after. Anyways, enough about that small update. I just haven't been active as much. I've been busy with schoolwork and such, so just bear that in mind. So today's video is a bit of a smaller one. It won't be edited as much, if at all. The only purpose of this video is to let you guys know what I've been working on for the past few days. If I count in the amount of studying up on it, it's a few weeks by now, and it's been something I've been trying to do for quite a while. I do have other projects in mind, but those will have to be scheduled for another time because they're not related to this at all. Anyways, so the project I've been working on is a bit of a text classifier. It's basically an AI that can classify text, basically. And what I was trying to do with it is I wanted to make a classifier first. Now, I did do that. The classifier is working, which I'm surprised by, even though I shouldn't be, considering how good my luck is in terms of writing code and such. But you can see quite a few nodes here, the data set I used and everything. So nothing really that special. If you're wondering what data set I used the large movie review data set, which is from Stanford University, so you can get that. I'll put a link to it down in the description below if you're interested in using that as well. It's a fairly large data set. There's quite a few items in the data set. So if we have a look at where it is, the data set is a few hundreds of megs of items, basically. It's quite a large folder. It's a few hundred megs in size. So, and it's a bunch of items in there. You can already see we're at 200 megs, and it's not even finished counting all the items in it. It's a really large folder. That's what my point is. But one thing you'll notice is that we have a CSV file that we've generated. It's 65 megs, and that's all the reviews being processed using that algorithm that I have in there. So in terms of the code, I have quite a few packages imported in here. Some of these, if not all of them, are important. Up here, as I always do, I include the commands I use to make it to be set up properly on my machine. So it should work as long as you have the proper setup. If you're wondering, the version of Python I'm using is, I actually don't know. Let me see. So it's Python dash version. So I'm using Python 3.7.8. I could have actually looked down in the left corner. I'm using the version that's integrated into Visual Studio. So if I have to use Visual Studio, I don't have to reinstall all my modules again. I can just use this version and be done with it. Here I was doing just some testing, trying to understand how it works. Basically, what this does, it processes text and it has to split the text into words. So it looks at the string that we've put in here. So for example, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, and we are using stop words and punctuation. And basically what we're looking for, the stop words are words that are inside of the English dictionary, and we are looking at each and every word, and we then print out the tokens, and the tokens are then used somewhere else. We then take everything that we have and we look for each text inside of those tokens, and we take out each and every individual word. So So what we're basically looking for is we create a empty array called stems, and we inside of the array we just put each and every word, and it will be separated by a comma. So what it will do, it will print out the comma quick comma brown. You get the idea. It will just print out a list of each and every word inside of that string. So that's what this code does. Here we have basically what I was trying to do is I was trying to learn how to use the data set that I had, which was the IMDb movie review data set. And we have two kinds of reviews. We have a positive and negative review. So we're telling it in which folder it is, which in my case is inside of the IMDb folder. And inside of that folder, we want to classify two types of reviews. We have a positive and a negative review. And what we do is we want to create a frame of data to be used in our classifier. And what we do is for each item inside of the test or training data, we're looking for a positive or negative review. If we do get that, we set up a path, and we take the path, which is the folder, and inside of that folder, which is the IMDb folder, so we take the IMDb folder location, and then we look inside of if it's either testing or training data, and then we'll look if it's a positive or negative review. And what we do here is that for each file inside of that directory, which is that path, we wanna basically read each and every line inside of that directory. And what we wanna do is we wanna append that text, or the labels if you will, and we want to just put them in and separate them if they are reviews or statements. So we're taking all of the reviews, every single one of them, and we're separating them into columns either by it being a review or a sentiment. That's what all of this code does over here. Then we take the reviews and we separate them with spaces. The result is normally you wouldn't see the result. So what we need to do is we need to split the text into words. This is what this does. We take the tokens that we generated previously and we separate them by reviews, and then we set the vocabulary based on the tokens. What we do then is we print out the length of the library. The length of the library is over here, down here in this section. We have 195,000 items approximately inside of that, which is quite a lot of data to be processed, even for my machine. It's not a fairly powerful machine at all, it's a modest machine, but not the fastest at all. I would definitely benefit of having a faster machine for this, but I gotta work with what I have, and it works fine. Plus, Python isn't really that fast, so it takes a while to execute everything, so I might be partly to blame for this, for me using Python for this. But then again, it's me, I love Python, I like to do projects with it. What we do next is we look at how frequently each and every word appears inside of that vocabulary. This is where the frequency distinguishing or the distribution comes in. We basically take the function called fracdist, which looks at how frequently each and every word appears in the dictionary, and we just set it as a variable. And then we sort it. We sort it by each and every item, and we take the top 50 items. This is what this means. We take the top 50 items of our dictionary and we sort it. We sort that dictionary and we take the top 50 items, basically. This is what this entire line says. We sort the dictionary and take the top 50 items in that list, basically. You could use other fun utilities to print out into a special kind of wallpaper if you will, but that's up to you to decide. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this library. What we do next is we take all of this data and we put all of it inside of our movie_data.csv file. A CSV file is a comma separated value file. What that means is it's a special file that can be used in programming to store a bunch of data inside of a file and separate them by a comma. A comma basically determines what will be on the first position and on the second position. In our case, we have two positions, first and second position. So position 0, position 1. Hopefully that makes sense, I hope. So, to show you how that file actually looks like, it's a pretty big file. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna open it using Excel, because Excel takes forever to open it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to use LibreOffice for this, because LibreOffice doesn't take that long to load, even though it's a 70 meg file that it generated. So it might take a while. So I'm gonna have to give it time. It's a tip of the day. I don't really need that, thank you. So, what did we end up with? We ended up with a bunch of files. Really large amounts of files. So it's separated into two columns. Each one is titled depending on what data it separates into. So we have the review itself and the statement that we've generated. I just realized that I didn't do this one properly, and it's not showing as it should. Let me readjust this a bit. There we go. No, not good enough. You can see it, that it shows like the reviews on the left side and the other bits of data that we need. Sorry for the adjusting, consider adjusting. So here are all the reviews and how it's determined as. So we see that it's that review, and then we see that it's a sentiment, and there's a lot of data in here, like a lot of it. Like if I scroll down just a tiny bit, like for example we're on row 24,600, so halfway through, and we see this review over here. Now it takes the reviews based off the text that are in there, so they may have these break lines in them. You can see it's quite a big review, so that's why it's so huge. This data set, or this file, it contains a lot of data. One thing I have noticed is that in terms of sentiment, it basically counts as a 0 now. That might happen, which is fine, because there's a lot of it. Because you have noticed that the first 15 or so thousand items are actually positive. So one half should be full of ones and the other should be filled with zeros, basically. So if it's a positive review, it should count it as 1. And if it's a negative review, count it as 0, which, if you remember, was defined over here as labels. So if it was a positive review, count it as 1. If it was a negative review, count it as 0. So that's that. These are basically the items we separate them into for the testing data. So we took all of that was inside of this CSV file, and what we did is we located the values inside of our dictionary. No, it's not a dictionary, it's more of a data set, if you will, that we've generated. And we are taking roughly 25,000 items, and we divide them into testing and training sets. So we're taking positive and negative, and so we have basically 4 like statements, sentiments, if you will. So for the MDB data set, we can divide them into testing and training data. So we have one for positive and one for negative. So one for the review for training and one for the sentiment for training, which is roughly 25,000 items. Same goes over here, but they are used for testing. So we're using them for a comparison, basically. And here is where we turn them into vectors. The reason why we need to turn them into vectors is that we want to be able to determine if the word is basically positive or negative, and therefore adjust it and tell it, hey, is this review positive or is it negative? That's what the vector pretty much does. And what we're doing is we're telling it, you know, in that direction, basically, that's where all the positive reviews are going, and in that direction, that's where all the negative reviews are going. So this is what we're doing here. We're printing out the shape of the vector for both the training and testing data, which is what we're printing out on the second line over here. We create a vector of 25,000 and 74,000 roughly, and that's for the training vector. That's the training vector, that's how it looks. And then we have the testing vector. Now, if you look closely, they have the exact same values, and that's because we have them split basically in half. We have an equal amount of negative and equal amount of positive reviews. That's what's happening here. So it's an ideal situation to test our model on. Next, train our model and then test it on. So what we need to do is we take all of this and we have to fit it. What fitting basically means is you're taking the model that you've created and you make it train so it can identify a positive and negative review basically. And what we're doing here is we're basically telling it, hey, just train on this data and compare it with the result, which is later on in terms of testing. Testing is basically taking the data or the model that you've trained and we're comparing it with the results or against a new completely blank data set. So what will happen is we're taking, okay, so it classified these reviews as positive and negative just like that. And we're taking its ability to classify these reviews and we're basically trying to test it, see like how well it learned to do these things. That's where the testing part begins. So we take the prediction, we create a variable called predicted, and we use the prediction library to tell it, hey, we have this testing data, use it for your prediction. So basically it's predicting how well it's gonna do. And then what we're doing is we're printing the accuracy score. The accuracy score basically tells us how accurate our model is. And what we're doing is we're testing the result of our test, which is y_test, and comparing it to the predicted data. And what will happen is it will give us a score. Now the score of the test that I did was around 84%. This is how you read this. It's 0.83664, which is roughly 84%, which is pretty good, but not perfect, which is obvious. Nothing is perfect. And it also took a while to run all of this. That's pretty much it. That's what I have done. I have a model or a classifier, if you will, that I've trained already, and it's able to determine these things. Now I need to know what I can do with this. I originally had no goal for this. I just wanted to dabble around with it and ended up making this so far. So that's all I have right now. If there is enough interest in this video, and I see quite a few comments expressing enough interest in this project, I will make a full-fledged video in the future if it's what you guys want to see. This is so far everything I have done. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but you have to count in that it's Python, and Python is a really minimalistic language. Pretty much something that you would do in other languages in 10 lines, you can do in Python in about 1 or 2 lines, and that's it. So that's why I use Python. It just makes it a lot simpler for me, and it's one of my favorite languages of all time, so that's why I use it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share the video around to people that might be interested in this topic, and I hope to see all of you beautiful people next time.